These two Bigfoot stories still give me chills every time I tell them. Now, this first story comes out of Washington State. There was this ecologist named Philip. Now, Philip worked for the National Forest Department, and he said his particular job is that he would be sent to some of these remote places in the national forest where he, for weeks, would study the local flora and fauna. Well, on this particular assignment, he said he was sent to a very remote lake. And this park ranger takes him as far as he can on this back road, and then he drops him off. From there, he sets off on foot and he hikes 20 miles to this clearing on the side of a hill that is right next to this lake. As he's setting up his camp, he notices across the lake there is a cabin. So he decides to hike down over to where it's at. When he gets there, he finds this very old cabin that was falling apart, is very old and very musty. He said he went inside and he could tell that no one had been there for a very long time because there was dust and cobwebs everywhere. And there was sort of a very bad putrid smell. So he leaves the cabin and he goes back to his campsite. Later that night, he's cooking dinner when all of a sudden he starts hearing these screams and this banging sounds and this house. And it is coming from the direction of that cabin. And he's like, I didn't think anyone was there. I searched that place, no one was there at all. So he hikes down in the middle of the night and he sneaks over to the cabin and he gets within a good distance to where he can see the perimeter. When he looks in one of the windows, he sees a very big shadow of a person moving across the room. So, him not wanting to confront this person in the middle of the night, he decides, I'll come back in the morning and talk to them. So he goes back to his campsite. The next morning, he goes to the cabin, except it is completely untouched and it looks exactly the same as the day before. So he figures, okay, maybe I'm just, losing it. So he goes back to his campsite, and once again, at night, same thing. He hears these sounds coming from the cabin. And the next night, and the next night. Until one night, he is sitting at his campsite and he is focused on this cabin across the lake. And he said it was lit up very well by the moonlight. And that's when he notices a person step out of the cabin and start walking towards the lake. And then it just stopped and stood there. So he got out his binoculars and he gets a closer look. And that's when he realizes there's a Bigfoot looking directly at him. Now, this second story takes place near the Appalachian Trail. There was this man named Mikey. Mikey said when he was younger, he would go to this Boy Scouts camp that was situated along the Appalachian Trail. And he said years prior to him going there were rumors that one of the Boy Scouts that was staying there had disappeared. And they never found this boy, but they did discover this very strange cave that was filled with backpacks and clothing and all of this strange stuff. But they didn't attribute it to the disappearing Boy Scout. So he said that summer he was camping there, and him and this other camper were in their tent late at night. It started to storm, and he said As he looked in the corner of the tent, he could see a light shining in, like someone had a flashlight and they were walking behind the tent. And he can hear the sound of footsteps going behind them. And it comes up to the tent and then it stops. And then for a while it was just completely quiet. Well, he said these storms started getting worse and worse. And finally, the scout leaders came around and said, look, we need to get under this picnic shelter until these storms pass. So everybody gets out and they go to this picnic shelter and they huddle around waiting out this very bad storm. Well, he said every time lightning would strike, you could see the woods completely lit up and you could see everything. Well, as he's looking off in the direction of his tent, when lightning strikes, he sees the outline of this very tall, hairy creature about 20 feet from his campsite. And he said it scared him so bad that he wet himself. And then, like that, whatever it was gone. So he tells the scout leader, like, there is something by our tents. And the scout leader's like, just calm down. It's probably all in your head. Like you're just scared because of the thunderstorm. So the storm stopped and they tell them, go back to your tents. So him and his buddy, they get inside the tent and they go back to bed. Well, they're awoken again in the middle of the night to a sound of someone walking outside of the tent. But that's when they notice the flap on their tent is untied, completely open, and they can see that all of their stuff in the tent is scattered everywhere, like something had just been in their tent. And there is a foul smell of this putrid stench that is sort of lingering. And he said right at that moment they heard this very loud howl.